And a lot of people would like to complain about it because they just can't use it. They haven't mastered it. Deal with it. Do better. I think it's annoying to use as well, but I could just do better instead. What's up, bozos? It's your boy Baby Smooth, back today with another tier list. Today we're going to be talking about all the important weapons in the game. You may be noticing that there are no shatters or wetlands dungeons weapons here, but we'll get to those in a little bit after we handle all of these. Alright, let's speed run it, let's get into it. Candy Cane Katana is actually an A tier weapon. It's actually not bad if you don't have an alternative. Ray Romano Katana is probably like a C. I mean, it's a B. If it's lucky, it's probably a D. Let's put it in gimmick only. It's got a lot of range. If you need a lot of range for some reason, use it, I guess. But there are far better options. Not like the Crystal Kunoichi weapon. This weapon is not a great weapon on its own. In the set, it's okay, I suppose. This katana, the ST Samurai Set 1 katana, is not very bad. It's not great, but it's not very bad. It's a solid B. Celestial Katana does receive an A tier, as it does damage, but it's fucking annoying to use. Looks kind of cool though. And up next is going to be a C tier coming in for the second Samurai ST Katana. And then we get the katana that you get from the Thicket. Now, to my knowledge, this katana is not great, it's not terrible. It has an armor break on it, so we'll put it high C. You're never going to have this weapon as you're never going to do a Thicket. Enforcer. Say hello to our first S tier weapon. Enforcer is the king of katanas, kind of, with Valor coming in at above or below it, depending on how often you like to get hit. But Valor's not here right now, so we'll leave a message. And that message is, the saw is going to gimmick only. It's for the construction set, that's about it. The Recomp wand is a D tier weapon. The tier 13 wand is a tier D weapon. And the fucking, tier 14 wand, again, is another D tier weapon. I'm also noticing that there's no secondary weapon types or whatever. And that's fine. We'll do those later too. The Sword of Acclaim, solid B tier sword, I suppose. The tier 13 sword, I'm gonna give it an S tier because it's beautiful. It's fucking beautiful, man. It looks so good. It's so pretty. Tier 14 sword, it's going to, B tier. Like, it's one of the better swords in the game, right? But it's not as pretty as that one. Moving on, we got the tier 12 katana in the D tier. You know what, why don't I just make a fucking another tier for like just meaningless meaning. Compared to other ones, we'll put tier 14 in B, and these two can stay down here. Moving forward, we have the Satamune, which will probably be in the A tier because it's better than the B tiers and shit like that. And we'll also have this in high A. I believe it's going to out-damage Celestial. I could be slightly wrong. We got the spider damage. The spider shit. Did I rename this? Alright. Gimmick only. Spider Dagger is a great gimmick if you need a UPE dagger early on. That's the only time you'll use this. We got the D tier being the tier 12 dagger. The Queen Stinger comes into gimmick only. It really is just a fucking gimmick. Dirk of Cronus is going to S tier because it's got swag. If this were swag tier, Dirk of Cronus is here. But it's not, so it's going to high B tier. I know it's sacrilege. The damage is not impressive. The wisdom stat is disappointing. We're going to put the best dagger in the game, being the Avarice, in A tier. Dagger classes are suffering and struggling, and they need your thoughts and prayers to do better. It looks fucking cool though. Tell me that's not a pretty looking dagger. This thing is going to gimmick only once again. It is the dagger from the Slime Assassin set, and it really is just a fucking gimmick. We're going to put Aetheryte below tier 12, which I think is where it belongs these days. And gimmick only goes to the Vampire Soul Scythe Dagger, as well as the Trickster set Dagger. It's not great, but you know, it's more usable than a lot of the other ones. I will put it above tier 12. Do I know that it belongs there? I'm not quite positive. I think it's around that DPS level. So we will put it in D, I suppose. This dagger used to be really good, the Ripper. It honestly could be a gimmick-only dagger, but its damage is more respectable than, you know, gimmick-only things. So for that reason, I'm going to move Saw out of gimmick-only, and I'm going to put all of these daggers over here. We have the dagger from Davy Jones' Locker. It's solid. It's right next to tier 12. You know, I feel like I should label these like tier 12. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna label tier 12 weapons as instead of D tier, kind of as our baseline. These are like basically equivalent to tier 12. We also have the Christmas dagger, which I think is slightly better. I could be terribly wrong about this, but I know there's like 2 Christmas weapons that are decent. The katana and the chipper. And then I think there's one that's like somewhat usable. I didn't do the research on this specific item, but the Christmas dagger might be the one that's somewhat usable, maybe. Tier 13 is going into C. Now, seeing that we now have a tier 13 weapon category, you may be wondering, Baby Smooth, why is it tier 13 wand in the tier 12 weapon category? Because it's disgusting. You're not allowed to be a tier 12 wand. You stop it. I mean, a tier 13 wand. It's like, it looks good, but the damage on these normal wands are really bad. Unacceptable. This dagger deals more damage than tier 12. Just don't miss your shots, and it's kind of usable. The bow dagger is a gimmick weapon. Terribly gimmicky. Very stinky. Terrible. It pierces. That's its gimmick. But you're never going to find a situation to use that. This little dagger went to market, and it's just a tier 12. So it goes here. Corruption Cutter. I wouldn't put it S tier, but it's going to go in higher than A, higher than Avarice, because if you're hitting your shots on an armor-broken target, it's better damage. Avarice is surely more usable and cooler, but Corruption Cutter is going to do more damage, and it also looks cool and is fun to use on its own, so it'll stay there. Bramble Bow is great for a UPE bow class, just starting out. The Leaf Bow is a high A tier weapon. It gives you bonus speed, and you know, it's been king of bows for a little bit. It still has its uses. It's still pretty good. The Harp will also be an A tier weapon. That's pretty fucking good too. I think they might have buffed all the other bows, making the Harp like less worthwhile though, so we are going to put it to B tier. But the Harp used to be king of the bows for a minute. Now, once again, the Coral Bow used to be king of the bows. It's almost like bows have been changed and cycled so often. Coral Bow goes to gimmick only. Joined by its friend, the Bow of Extreme Range. Did you know that as a bard, using this bow from the High-Tech Terror, you can shoot across further than your screen, I believe, further than visible? Not every weapon in the game can do that. This bow, though, is kind of sick and kind of cool. It's actually going to be C tier, even though it probably shouldn't be. I'd like to put it in C tier, out of respect for its uniqueness. Now, the Deathless Crossbow, once again, a weapon that used to be king of its weapon class, but received heavy nerfs. I believe it's... I don't even know if it's above a tier 12 now, because tier 12 bows are so good. I'm going to say gimmick only, and that gimmick is you need a time machine to make it worthwhile. Now, the tier 14 dagger will be a B tier weapon, joined by its brethren. I'm even going to move the tier 14 wand down to C tier. It is purple and cool, but it's not great. The B bow from the ST set is interesting. Does that make it good? No. So it's a C tier weapon. I think for a little bit people were excited to use it. I just don't think it's that viable. It does shoot some cute little bees now, which is kind of cool. The Hollyhock bow is actually a decent weapon. Once again, it armor pierces. But due to the bow rework, it's not as powerful as it was once seen. It is going to be a high C tier weapon. It should probably be B tier, but it's not. Here is the what the fuck is this weapon and the what the fuck is this weapon. These are going away. I don't know what those are. If you know what those are, let me know. They seem like some type of admin item. I don't know. Doom bow was again, it used to be the king. Now it's a gimmick. The void bow, once again, used to be the king. Now it's a gimmick. Why is every bow like this? The void bow is gonna go into C tier, high C. It used to be the greatest bow of all time. Now it's just a stinky, stinky thing. The B tier, or the A tier, or the S tier. It's going in the S tier for the bow of the Mad God from the Oryx Shards. It's an S tier bow because it's an EP. You stand on shit, you do the most damage possible. It's a good bow. It's really nice, actually. This bow was pretty unique. It was pretty cool, but now that every bow is viable, every tiered bow that is, it's gonna go into gimmick only, and that gimmick is you have that ST set. Here is the nail gun, which can find its place with the other construction weapons. It looks funny, so it's better than the other construction weapons, but you know, it just goes burr. It looks funny. Next up is the Crystal Serpent Staff. This one fucks. Sorry, the staff fucks. And I shouldn't say fucks, so I'm gonna say whack. This staff is pretty dope. It's a gimmick only. If you're a UPE, you should get this. If you're not, don't even look at it. Tier 12 bow, obviously gonna go in tier 12 weapons, but bows are just kind of king, so it's gonna be high up there. The tiered bows are some of the best tiered weapons in the game now. They went from being the worst to some of the best. This ST staff, terrible, absolutely horrendous weapon. Shoots very slow, bad bullet pattern. I would never use this weapon under any circumstance. Prove me wrong. This next thing is the staff from HTT. It's actually seen as respectable. It does moderately respectable damage. We're gonna put it in the B category because there's not very many good staff options that are not just tiered staffs. This weapon is going to gimmick only. It's almost a tier 12 equivalent, kind of. But it's not great. It's the yellow Pac-Man circle from the Mystic ST set. Next up is Tetsukado's tail. I don't even think it's comparable to tier 12 staff. Once again, our gimmick only section is sure filling up. It's good for armor break, armor penetration rather, but you don't find much use for it because I think it's still outdamaged on most bosses that have high defense. Next weapon is the ST staff from the old set, as this is an out-of-date kind of tier list here. This was bad. This would be gimmick only, but I believe it would be at least C tier if it's the newer version of this, which we're just gonna pretend. I believe it's at least C tier. Once again, for needing a time machine, the Cult Staff was once upon a time seen as good. I stand by the idea that if you're hacking or you are shooting backwards, maybe it's worth. I'm gonna put it in C tier, which is gonna be above tier 12. Don't be hacking, but if you're hacking, I think you can make all the bullets hit or something. I don't know. I don't know how it works. Next up is the Trident. The Trident is cool, but is it better than a tier 12 staff? Yeah! If you find, you know, the opening to use the Trident and hit all the shots, I believe it out DPS's tier 12 staff. But it's also cool. Come on, guys. Staff of Espen, it's also cooler than tier 12 staff. It has a fun bullet pattern. I enjoy using it, so it's beating the tier 12 weapons. This one, kind of the same. But also not, because this one stinks, kind of, but it also might do more than Trident. We're just gonna put the three brother staffs down here. Next up is Superior, an item that I would love to be able to put in the S, but I just can't. I don't even think I can put it in A. It surely goes into B. I like purple, and I like shooting fast and shooting a lot. And this does all of those things, but it's just not that great or that feasible. And it is outshined by something else that you'll see soon enough. Next up is a tier 13 bow. I'm actually going to put it into B tier just because tiered bows are kind of king compared to other bows. This staff from Oryx, ST shards, sorry, Oryx UT shards is going to be in the C tier. It is terrible to use, but it outdamages a tier 12 staff. I believe its damage is comparable to tier 13.5. Next up is the Sleigh Bell staff. We're gonna put it down here just because most Christmas weapons are dookie shit. We're putting it in gimmick only. Next up is another gimmick only staff, the staff from the Magic Woods. And this staff is actually usable in one circumstance. The circumstance that you have that Mystic Orb from the Shatters, the Primal Arcana, which shoots when you shoot. So this staff has a really high rate of fire, and if you have Primal Arcana, it actually makes it worthwhile to use. Next up is the EP. Obviously, it's an S tier item, but it's also a gimmick-only item. The EP is usable by powerful players when they're standing inside things, often leading to their own deaths if they don't know what the hell they're doing or if they mess up. The EP does incredible damage, and for that reason, it's going to be kind of top of the S tier, kind of. Next up, the Screwdriver staff. This thing looks cool. It's a tool. It's a good staff. Staves are good weapons. It's gonna go here. Sprite Wand, gimmick only, stinky. This wand, pretty cool and pretty fun. The wand from the Magician Sork set. Pretty cool, pretty fun. I'd love to give it a B. And so I'm just gonna do that. And you can fight me about it. It's fun to use and it looks good. This one is the wand from the Mad Lab. I'm gonna give it a C, but in reality, it's gonna go to tier 12 weapons / gimmick probably. But, you know, it gives you a little bit of vit and whiz, I believe, and it shoots cute little fireballs. That's kind of cool. It's better than gimmick only tier. This next wand is absolutely horrendous and unusable. It is Burst Fire. It is the ST wand from the Summoner set, and it's horrendous. Never use this, not even if you have the whole set, because the set is dookie and garbage. Next up, we have the Ruler, and like most construction weapons, it's going here, because that's what they are. And then we come to the tier 14 bow, an S tier weapon in 2022. Never did we think we would see the day that bows became okay. A rhyme by Baby Smooth. Incredible bow. Out DPS's Warmonger, out DPS's all other bows, I believe, when hitting all 3 shots. Aside from the Mad God bow. Next up is definitely a gimmick-only weapon, but it has a fun little EP effect every once in a while that can actually slow your enemies. It's fun to use when you're on a PPE or UPE as a nice little swap out to boost your DPS. Next up is the God Wand, the Lumi itself in the flesh, coming in after EP or maybe before. I'm going to put it before. I'm going to put it on top. Call it wand bias. I don't even like it that much. I don't like using it that much, but there's nothing better than seeing a player that knows what the hell they're doing. That a player that is mastered using a Lumi hit like every shot with it. It's very impressive. It's very hard to use, but when you maximize your usage of this, it's incredible. It's really, really good. I think it's good game design, the Lumi in itself, because to have this sort of damage payoff, you really need to use it well, and it's hard to use. I think that's great. I think that's a great trade-off in skill versus damage. And a lot of people would like to complain about it because they just can't use it. They haven't mastered it. Deal with it. Do better. I think it's annoying to use as well, but I could just do better instead. Next up, we have the wand from Mountain Temple. It's going in the B tier. It's not bad. It's pretty good. Maybe it should even be A tier. And so I suppose it will be. For lack of better wand options, it will be an A tier. Next, we have the Mad God wand. I think it's going to go in C. The Tyrant's wand. Nobody likes using this. I don't like using this. You don't like using this. It can go into C. Just because it's better than a tiered wand when used properly. This wand has its interesting uses as well. It's going to go into high C. This is the wand from the Sorcerer set, ST set 1, the Monstrosity. It shoots really slow, but it hits really hard. There's a place for this. Not in my heart, but in someone out there's. The Wand of Cemetery Green Things and Shooting Tiny Tears at Stuff. That's its official name. Because it's, it's not ringing a bell right now, but it's really good. This wand is the topic of discussion. Something with a soul. Soul of the Bearer. Wand of the Bearer. Something like that. It looks cool enough, and it does good damage, and it does really interesting things, kind of game-breaking things, in the form of those blue tears, and so it's going to high B tier. Next up is the Wand of Dracula Killing. It's going to the gimmick only. If you're a UPE, this is a viable wand for you. The shots look like spermies. If that's your thing, you can use that. The Candlestick, also gimmick only. If you want burst fire for whatever reason, boy, do I have the wand for you. The Candlestick, another Christmas weapon, kind of stinky, as all burst weapons tend to be. Next up, we have the Wand of the Bulwark, which is, once again, could you guess it? It's a gimmick only. Now, there is an argument to be made for using this to maximize your DPS in solo attempts or in O3s, but it's not even, kind of worth it enough for the effort. Not worth the effort. Next up, we have the Thaumaturge wand. I believe it's from that Oryx Priest set, and it's going to be probably just middle of C tier. It's there's not many good wand options in the game. This one is not exactly an exception. It's not great. It's not terrible. It should probably be in B, given that wands are bad, generally, stat-wise. So it's going to be, I suppose. Next, we have a Tier 12 Staff. Now, the Tier 12 Staff is a C-tier weapon. I'm not even capping. Just, think about it. The Tier 12 Staff is a C-tier weapon. It outshines its other Tier 12 companions. I'm leaving the screwdriver down there for aesthetics. It's good, and there's a lack of better staff options. It's got to go there. Crystal Wand, gimmick only. Not even exactly worth it when you have the right spot for it, for its armor, penetration, and slightly increased fire rate. Crystal Sword, same deal. Not great. Never great. Don't use it unless, you want to have long range and be a pussy. I would love to see a rework of the crystal weapons, as the Crystal Prisoner doesn't exactly drop weapons anyway, or rather doesn't like to drop loot very often. It would be cool if when you finally got these, they were kind of better. Now, there are going to be people that say, I get tons of sea swords and sea wands. Yeah, but how many other times do you get no bag at all from the Prisoner? Very stinky. This sword is the Pixie Sword, and it used to be king of the jungle, king of everything, king of the Candyland, but now it's outshined quite a bit. We're going to put the Pixie Sword into B tier. You can at me if you want, but there are better options, even for what it was best at. The next sword is the sword from Lair of Draconis. Indomitable. I don't even believe it's better than tier 12, but I believe it might be quasi-equal. Someone run the numbers, do the calculations. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's the worst. Next, we have the Pirate Cutlass thing. It's going into gimmick because I know more about it. I know it's a little bit worse than tier 12. It does have a little bit more range. It is curvy and funny to shoot. It's gonna go high in gimmick. It's decent. If you ever want to have 1,000,000 health, use the pirate hat, the pirate sword, and the pirate armor, and a Deca ring, and you can be the greatest leech warrior in the world. Next up is the rapier, which I would love to be able to put it high on the list, but its damage is equivalent to tier 9, but it has that bounce back effect, which is really cool to me, and I wish it was more usable. I wish it was respectable. It is not. We have a hammer, which goes next to its construction equivalents. And we have the ST sword from Oryx 2, which is actually going above the tier 12 weapons and into the B tier. There's a few reasons why this belongs here. One of the reasons being that using 3 pieces of that set, the ring, the armor, and the sword, are actually very beneficial to your character's damage. Say you're a warrior, say you're any sword class will benefit from using that 3-piece set. You get some nice stats, and it's very impressive. It could even be considered an A tier weapon, but there's no need for it to be up there, as there are better options. Acclaim, I don't know why I ever put this in B tier. This was one of the earliest placements, so now we're going to put it back down where it belongs. Near the top of tier 12 weapons. Next up, we have Divinity. Divinity is obviously an S tier weapon, but it's an S tier disappointment. When I use a Divinity, I want to see cool laser beams fall from the heavens. And now I know that it used to have this. I know that it does. But Deca has no excuse for not being able to implement that on client side as an option. When you're using Divinity, when you're using Escutcheon, when you're using any of these cool things that should be the most incredible weapons in the game, think about it. 03 is the god tier boss of the game. The shatters may be harder, but 03 is the theme of the game. He is the game. He is the final guy. He is the final task. You beat him up, you get his sword, and it's mid. It doesn't look cool. It just makes a yellow circle. This should be a god tier weapon. It should be very impressive to see, but it just falls a little flat. Its damage is great, but aesthetically speaking, the pixel art is great, but not seeing that lightning bolt really ruined my first Divinity for me. When I finally had it, I was so excited to equip it and see a cool lightning bolt on my screen, but I didn't. And then I got depressed. And now I played Realm for 2 years because of that depression. No, I'm just kidding. Next up is the Pirate Cutlass. It's going slightly above tier 12. How many people are actually hitting their shots when they use this, though? For a long time, this was seen as DPS Rex. I don't know if it still is, but let's be honest, there's a lot of people that just aren't fucking hitting their shots because there's less range. It can sit at the bottom of C tier. The tier 13 staff is going to go to high B tier. It is kind of beautiful, so I think it's going to go to A tier. It's a beautiful way. Why is tier 13 katana? You know, I have to go back and I have to take things away from where they were. Tier 14 and tier 13 katana get moved down to B tier. But then that means that so do these. I think Celestial Katana can stay up there. If tier 14 is better than it, you can sue me. It's quite possibly tier 14 is better, but I'm not quite sure. Next, we have the Axe, the ST from the Ice Cave. And I would love to put this in C tier because it has that nice lingering effect. The damage is comparable to an Acclaim, but with the addition of that lingering effect and a little bit more fire rate, it's a nice weapon to use. I like it. Dalvar's Battle Axe, I believe. Next, we have the Keeper Sword, and this is by all means a C tier weapon. It's almost a gimmick only because the only time you'll see it is on a Sea Shield Knight or a UPE. Next, we have the Kahlo Sword. S tier, baby. Honestly, this is one of the most beautiful pixel arts in this game. I think this is prime design. I think there's never been a weapon that looks prettier, more elegant, more impressive than the Kahlo Sword. I might have a Kahlo Sword boner right now. Like, this thing just looks good. This is peak pixel design. S tier, baby. Next is the Demon Blade. Kind of looks like Kahlo Sword's, you know, younger brother, the one people don't like as much. It's an A tier weapon because it's got really high damage when you're hitting things that are knocked down. Next up is the sword from the Oryx Shards. A B tier weapon, I believe, in my opinion. It's got the most sword range in the game, and it's kind of funny to use. It should be C tier, but you gotta feel bad for the guy. He's lovable. Use that sword, it's kind of funny. Next, we have the Chipper. Very much an A tier sword next to the Demon Blade. You're gonna have more potential to hit all your shots, but if you're on top of something, the Demon Blade is going to do more damage. So we're gonna put the Chipper right next to it. One of the few Christmas weapons that is not only usable, but impressive. Next up is the ASS. Pardon my French, this weapon is ass. It stinks like an ass. It doesn't do very good damage. Unlike an ass, asses can do lots of damage. We're gonna leave it down here. Next up is the Void Katana. We are gonna put this in the high B tier, as it is once again one of those gimmick weapons that is known for doing impressive DPS when you're hitting your shots. I suppose I should put it in A tier, as in a good run, you're going to be, hitting all your shots no matter what. And when played properly, this can add some damage to your character. Next up, we have the Katana from the Oryx set. I believe this is one of the better katanas as well. So we're going to put it into B tier, possibly between the tier 14 and the tier 13, possibly. Next up, we have the Doku no Ken. Now, I know this one belongs here. The Doku no Ken has a great design. It's a classic item. It's fun to use. I like this thing. You should too. Respect the Doku no Ken. Next up is tier 14 Staff. Now, I have to do this. It has to be S tier, baby. Not due to aesthetics alone, but due to the fact that staff base weapons, tiered weapon staffs, are just good. You know it, I know it, they're just good. It's an S tier weapon. One of the few S tier, tier 14 weapons. Next up, we have the Cube Staff. And I'm going to put this in A. I think with this set, it deals pretty good damage. I don't believe it does more damage than a tier 14 staff. I believe it can be the brother of the tier 13 staff. It has some uses, and it's a cube, if that's your thing. It looks pretty cool. And then we have these little admin items at the bottom. Who knows what to do with those? Now, you may be saying, Baby Smooth, where are the alternative weapon types? Baby Smooth, where are the Shatters weapons? Baby Smooth, where are the weapons from the Wetlands? And I would say, sucks to suck, loser. See you next time on Tier List Tuesday, where we take on something else. Goodbye. Leave comments of what you want to see. See you, nerds.